the murders became more of a galvanizing for the KDP ranks, and at the other time, the other organization, the Line of March. I mean, you have to understand, we were really all in our late 20s, mid to late 20s. We were very young, fairly naive, I think, about politics, even though we knew we were being surveilled by government forces. We didn't really understand what that all meant, right? I mean, we were doing very serious political work, but we were also very young, and we're enjoying our lives, right? I mean, we still partied. We're still regular young people who, you know, had all our lives ahead of us. And so when the murders happened, we were very shocked, you know, and it was amazing that when you think about it, the forces that we were up against the owners of the canneries, we were up against the U.S. government, we were up against the Marcos dictatorship and intelligence forces, that people were able, after Silme and Jean died, to come back the very next day and to go into the Union. And people say they literally cleaned up the blood from the floor and went back into that Union and went to work the next day. And formed the Committee for Justice within 3 weeks of the murders. I think the date was like June 17th, that we formed the Committee for Justice and declared that we were going to find justice for Silme and Jean. And so people really had to set aside their own personal grief, their own emotions, and just say we were going to do this work. We were going to carry on the dispatching and the reform work in the Union. We were going to keep fighting in the Filipino community around the Philippine issue, and we were going to go after the forces that we said benefited by Silme and Jean's death, which we knew the Marcos dictatorship was involved. And so, you know, people, I mean, when you think about being in your 20s and doing all of that, and facing all of the unknowns with that work, I mean, we really were very brave people to do that. We either were very foolish or very brave, and I think, you know, in some way, you know, brave, but I think galvanized that we were going to carry out this mission. And, you know, we had no idea it was going to take us 8-9 years to do it. But we had set out in 1981 to do it, and I think, you know, people will always remember that experience. I know for me that you know, obviously was a major turning point in my life, and something that I reflect on, you know, almost every day of my life about, you know, what that period of time meant. And people gave up a lot, you know, they gave up their professions, they gave up their having families, they gave up relationships to do that work. You know, sometimes it was 24 hours a day. You know, in the first 6 months after Silme and Jean were murdered, people were like meeting day and night. You know, doing Committee for Justice work, running that union. People were in charge of security to make sure that people were safe. You know, we actually did gun trainings where people were armed. You know, there's a story about in this KDP book that we're writing about how one woman was tasked to go out and find bulletproof vests so that people in Local 37 could go back to work with a vest, right? And she said, where am I going to find those? I know nothing about that. And they said, do it, find it. And she did, you know. So, you know, people were amazing, you know, in the year that Silme and Jean were murdered. And, you know, when we talk about a family that came together again, you know, that's another family that people never forget what they went through, and a bond that was formed, you know, through that work.